Serving up opinions on a silver platter, it's a grind. The information getting, bringing your got so hot you'll be sweating. These two dudes with attitudes will put you in the mood for a plate full of brain food. So don't delay, my daughter, my son. Visit the buffet called Promoter 101.
Welcome, one and all, to a very special episode of the Promoter 101 podcast. We are so excited to be in between some episodes here. This is episode 243 of Promoter 101. And today, we've got a very special feature for you. It's going to be an independent promoter session with Nitelite's Don Kronberg, Gate 52's Aaron Zimmerman, Psyko Steven Chilton, all the way from Pittsburgh, Drusky Entertainment's Brian Drusky, and from Minneapolis, First Avenue's Nathan Kranz.
The Promoter 101 podcast starts right now.
It's pretty obvious they never really grew up. They only learned how to act in public. Steiny and Luke in the morning on Promoter 101.
There are a bunch of past Promoter 101 episodes, and hey, we'd love for you to go back and listen to them. Huh, Connor?
Absolutely, and feel free to hit us up with your ideas and questions at steiny@promoter101.net.
What do you got to say about that, Luke?
Well, of course, we're all over the internet, Dan. The conversation continues. On X, this show is at Promoter 101. I'm at W. Luke Pierce. Dan is at The Jew. And over on Instagram, the show is at Steiny Promoter 101. Dan is at Dan Presents, and I'm at W. Luke Pierce.
Now, their opinions may have changed, but not the fact that they're always right. Huh? Steiny and Luke in the morning on Promoter 101.
Normally we talk about news of the week, Luke, but we're going to save that for the regular episode in 2 weeks when we're back.
You got a little news to share with everybody. I saw on the old social media that you and Elodie have relocated yourselves to the beautiful NorCal area. Congratulations. What's going on with you in your life?
Very excited about that. We are moving to Mill Valley, California. It's a dream come true, and process has started, but the next month or so is going to be a little chaotic as we go from Auburn, Washington to Mill Valley, California. And yeah, really excited about that. Just a change of scenery and a change of pace, a little empty nest vibe and starting over, third chapter, and should be fun.
Of course, your daughter Reese, an Oregon Duck here. You are kind of empty nesting right now, but what, Seattle was too rainy, or you just couldn't be that far away from Jeff White? Why Mill Valley?
Mill Valley is beautiful, and I just love the vibe. Jeff White doesn't hurt the whole scenario down there by any means. We had decided a while ago we were going to leave the Pacific Northwest after Reese went to school. She'd been out of the house for a little over a year now, finishing up her second year at Oregon. And so instead of going north for the Thanksgiving, she'll come south. So it'll be great. We're excited about that. Reese is excited. Elodie's excited. Sammy the Wonder Pup is very excited because right next door is a white husky that is the exact same age. So Sammy's already got a best friend in waiting. It's great.
Oh, congrats to you and Elodie. We'll still see a lot of Dan Steinberg out there in the world and hopefully see some more shows in the Bay Area.
I assure you of that. Oh, we should get to our session. But if you are of independent flair, there is a cool conference coming up, Luke.
There are, and it relates exactly to what we're talking about here. This was, I think, inadvertently planned, although it's a really nice plug for our friends at the National Independent Venue Association. The NIVA Conference is coming up this June 7 to 10. It'll be in Minneapolis. A lot of our great friends that'll be playing host in that beautiful city. And of course, some of the founding board members, including Dana Frank and all the First Ave folks, including one of our guests who's about to be on here, are going to be a grateful host to all of the independents that are going to be out there. It's a fantastic conference. Dan, I'm not able to make it this year. It's also the same week as CMA Fest in Nashville. Very sad about that. But this is always one conference that I look forward to seeing on the schedule here. It's become a really productive place and just a really great exchange of ideas, independent minds, and a lot of things that I think are missed in some of these other conferences. So for those of you that haven't registered yet, badges should still be available here, but you should get on it right now.
You know, we've been flirting about going for the longest time, talking to Jamie Loeb and Dana Franks and Andre Perry about maybe doing the podcast there, maybe some kind of version of some kind of session at some point. We've been flirting with it for a long time. I think we should go in 27. Like we can't go this year. I got the move, you've got CMA, but I think we should bring Promoter 101 to NEVA. It seems like the independent spirit. We should do that. Put it out there. I think we should do it.
I agree. I'm in. Are we committing to NEVA 27 right here on the podcast?
I guess they have to invite us, but if we could be so bold to invite
I
us.
could be so bold to tell them that we'd like to come to your conference.
No, those guys have been very cool in the
They have
past
been amazing.
and offered us, some kind of thing, and we've yet to figure it out. But I think in 27 we should try and make that happen.
You heard it from Dan. NEVASoc.org/conference.
NEVASoc.org/conference. NIVASSOC.org/conference.
Go get your badges before they sold out. I assume they will sell out in advance.
Steiny and Luke would like to remind you that a clean desk is a sign of a cluttered desk drawer. Promoter 101.
Without further ado, let's please welcome to the podcast Nitelite's Don Kronberg, Gate 52's Aaron Zimmerman, Psyko Steven Chilton, Brian Drusky from Drusky Entertainment, and First Avenue's Nathan Kranz.
It's Promoter 101. It's a special episode. We are doing an independent talent buyer session. We've asked some of our favorite talent buyers across the country, representing pretty much the entire nation, to come and talk to us about the current environment out there from the indie point of view. Joining us from the Chicago market, Nitelite Promotions, Don Kronberg. Promoting across the country, one of the bigger independents these days, from Gate 52, Aaron Zimmerman. Psyko Steve Chilton from Phoenix, Arizona. Brian Drusky holding it down for the Pittsburgh and the greater Pennsylvania market. And from First Avenue, taking over every venue in the Midwest, it seems. Every time I look up, they're announcing another venue. Nate Kranz is with us. Thanks, guys, for joining us.
Thank you.
All right, so we're going to skip past the current DOJ stuff that everybody's talking about because I don't want to get sucked into that. I want to talk about your business frame. As independents, you guys are all certainly finding a way to do volume and continue year after year to continue to build your business on a volume-based level. But it seems from the outside in a successful manner as there's growth for all of you.
Yeah. This year has been a slower start than the last couple of years. Aaron and I were talking off air. At the end of the day, we all figure it out as independents. It's a little bit different. We navigate a different territory than the national guys, Live Nations, AEGs of the world, but we all figure it out. I don't do the sexiest stuff. I've never done the sexiest stuff known to mankind, but I've always made a great living. As a matter of fact, for 36 years, I've been doing this, and occasionally we get big bones thrown to us. Occasionally we latch onto something that we are able to ride out for a while until usually what happens, the bigger guy comes along with a tour deal and steals the act. And that just kind of goes with the territory, a little bit more so these days than it used to be. But at the end of the day, I still enjoy what I do. I still enjoy the artist and the acts that I get to work with. And like you said, we put together enough volume to make a good living. And, I've got a few more years left in me, and I'd like to believe that there will be a few more good years ahead.
So you've kind of got the little bighorn method where you guys started in the outskirts of the Chicago metro area. And as you built relationships, you both built outwards into Milwaukee and Rockford as well, and Peoria. And then at the same time started to build those relationships into the Chicago theater, as you weren't trying to compete with Jam right off the bat, but years in, you're doing runs with some of those acts that you are doing at the Chicago theater. So you have been able to penetrate that market over time. But you started in the secondaries, which is similar to what Aaron's doing at Gate 52, where they're really focusing on the B's and the C's. And there are some A's, right? But they're not really the focus, Aaron?
That is definitely not the focus. There are a few. Clearly, we're partners with Jam in Chicago. But in general, the goal for Gate 52 was to be in the secondaries and tertiaries and try and connect the dots for the agents that were operating in the major markets. It felt like that was the bigger opportunity. It felt like it was the sandbox that was more reasonable to play in. Not quite as much competition, although these days I think there's competition everywhere. But we're definitely a secondary-driven company, and we kind of like it that way.
And you're doing venues all over the country at this point, right? There's like from Buffalo all the way to the Bay.
Exactly. All over the country. The sweet spot for us is generally probably as low as 500 all the way up to like 3,500, mostly in the club and theater space. And me personally, I find myself in the non-traditional space even more so. I like to consider, and I think part of the volume in my world is I like to be a specialist in that zone. I think as a buyer, not all of us can know everything. Not all of us can be in tune with what's coming up or every single artist that's going out. And so I like to stay bit in my lane. And I think that Gate 52 was created with specialists in mind. And our group of talent buyers at Gate 52 is truly specialists, dedicated people that know their world and their genre or lane extremely well.
Right. And that's a similar vibe to what you're doing in Pittsburgh, Brian, is you have certainly not an A market, but a solid B. And you've built that into a lot of the tertiaries that surround you, as you're now not just buying for Pittsburgh, but you are buying a solid amount of volume there, but you're taking shows into many of the surrounding markets all around you.
Yeah, correct. I was kind of forced to go into different markets just because I can get shows in a town like Youngstown or Johnstown, maybe a Wheeling or State College or Erie, where I'm not even getting the call in Pittsburgh because it's the big guys fighting for it in the large arenas. And it's like nearly impossible. I mean, it's creating my own stuff here. Like I now have a 3,000 cap amphitheater I've been working in, which I can steal a couple things here and there, but it's still not as easy to do what we're doing. So I was kind of forced to do it. Some of those markets that I go into, I also go into some markets upstate New York, I co-promote with some people and over in some of the Midwest cities, co-promoting with some other people. So as independent promoters working together, trying to fight the fight and stay relevant.
So it seems like you have a very similar model to Donnie, actually, where you're in a decent market, but you're having to go outside your market to build a full year's worth of volume for solid business.
Correct. I mean, when Don was talking, I'm like, that sounds exactly like me. I mean, his business model will sound exactly like what I'm doing. I don't get the sexy stuff. Here and there, I might get something, but I'm living on the outskirts of doing what I need to get to do to make a living and make a good living at it.
If both of you were to ignore the outlying markets, Pittsburgh and Chicago outliers, and just focus on your city, would there be enough volume to make a decent annual living without scrapping hard?
No.
No, probably not.
So it's an evolve or die thing where you're servicing those outlying markets.
I mean, I'd like to comment on that a little bit more, being the fact that I live just outside of the city limits of Chicago. I'm out by O'Hare Airport. Since day one, I think Dan touched on it. I had no choice day one, but to go to the secondary market. Actually, I did get my start in Rockford, Illinois. And I quickly, and that was kind of a funny story, and I'm not going to bring in the other promoter, but I went to the other big promoter in the area and I approached him at a show and I said, hey, listen, I'm getting into the business. You've always been somebody that I looked up to, and I'd like to work with you in this specific city, which was Rockford, Illinois. And he said to me, and he's a nice guy, and he said, Don, if I want to do the show, I will do it myself. But thank you for the offer. And I said, all right. And I made it a passion of mine to go out and become the number one promoter in Rockford, Illinois very quickly. And for a number of years, I was the guy. If you wanted a show at the Metro Center or the Coronado, you called me. And then I did that with a couple of other cities as well. And that kind of became the thing for me. Like I carved out a number of smaller markets in the Midwest that we've touched on. And really, I didn't think about Chicago. I didn't do my first show at the Chicago Theater till like 12 or 13 years ago. And I had just kind of written off the idea. And I got used to the living that I was making. And then when I finally, the door opened up for me to do shows there, it was great. But the funniest thing is, and I hope some of you will agree with me, that as a indie promoter, I make more money in the secondary, tertiary markets of the world than I do Chicago. I can sell out the Chicago theater. I shouldn't be using them as an example, but I'm going to. I can make more money playing a venue half the size with the right act.
Well, I think they would argue that their dirt is more expensive.
And your deal terms in the bigger popular buildings where every single person is fighting to get in there with whatever project they're working on, at the end of the day, They know that. They don't have to give the building away. And like you said, the cost of doing shows, in Chicago, I've got local 2. I've got super expensive front of house and staffing and security cost, and every other line item is far more expensive than when I go into the Rockford, Peorias, and, other tertiary markets of the world. And I don't know, I just kind of got used to it. Don't get me wrong. I love going into my own city and doing an occasional show, but it's not going to make me a lot of money, and it's not going to pay my bills overall.
All right. I want to bring Nate into the conversation now because you guys have an interesting model where you're probably one of the bigger indies in the country at this point, and it's all about the real estate that you guys hold, some of the coolest venues in the country. But you've gone from Minneapolis Central to opening up to the entire state, where you're doing Duluth, and obviously the Twin Cities have always been in play, but there's venues everywhere. You guys continue to pick up more venue share. There's an amphitheater coming online. How much of it is about programming your venues versus four-walling and taking acts into other markets at this point?
I mean, it's funny because I was sitting there listening, and our model is almost the opposite in that, like, we've really started with Minneapolis, and now we have just as many venues in St. Paul. Which
Did you consider that the same market, right?
I do. It's one. I was just going to say, yeah. I mean, but that's really that's only one market. But we've really put a focus on trying to put a moat around the Twin Cities and really do whatever we can to stay strong there. That's our focus. Obviously, when we own 6 venues, we're trying to do enough volume within the clubs and theaters to make sense out of owning 6 venues. But then, as you said, then we are with some artists, and it depends on the artist relationship. It depends on the opportunity. But then we do go outside of the Twin Cities into markets like Duluth, Waite Park, which is, St. Cloud, and on occasion elsewhere. I mean, we've done shows kind of all over the state, but our focus has really been on staying strong within Minneapolis, St. Paul, and really just developing these artists. Our smallest room is a place called the Clown Lounge, but that's not routinely programmed. So we consider it like your entry level to the market is 7th Street Entry, which is a $250 cap, classic, punk rock venue. It's been there for 46 years. Try and guide an artist from there up through the Palace Theater, which is in St. Paul at 2,400 cap. And as you mentioned, we will have our own 8,000 cap outdoor amphitheater opening next year. But right now we do shows at Surly Brewing outdoors, which is 6,000. But it's really like developing the artists and then trying to hold on for dear life and fend off the tour deals. Yeah.
It feels like you guys have had better than average luck at holding on to artists. I know there's a Fillmore in your market that you guys are competing with now that is new over the last 10 years.
Yeah.
So it can't be as easy as it used to be, obviously, but there's definitely, obviously your partnership with Jam's got to help. That's good strategic.
Yeah, that helps. I mean, and we work with other partners. I mean, to me, we wear 2 hats. When we're promoting shows, it's one thing. From the venue side, we've established a lot of partnerships to, again, keep the volume of shows coming through our venues. We work with, various different Christian promoters, comedy promoters. Outback will bring shows into the rooms. On occasion, we're working with Live Nation, AEG. Over the years, we've had a lot of competition. It's changed. It went from, Clear Channel was in the market. They left. AEG came in and opened a couple clubs. Those closed. They left. Live Nation came back in. Now they own the Fillmore, and they have another similar size venue called Uptown Theater in Minneapolis. They're operating the Varsity, which is a room that, I don't know, we really established. We were doing maybe 100 shows a year, 80 to 100 shows a year before they ended up taking that over. So yeah, I mean, we've got competition, but we've also got talented people, and we've got legendary venues and a good game plan for the artists to try and let them know that when they play for us, it's not just a one-off. We're not just like hoping you sell out the entry and say goodbye. It's, okay, what's the next step, and trying to stay involved in that decision-making and planning. And I think that goes a long way towards, again, hanging on even after bands might graduate from our rooms.
All right. And then the same concept in a much smaller, earlier stage, Mr. Chilton, you've got that going on in Phoenix, where you've taken over the Mason Jar stage and turned it into your own venue, rebranded it, brought it back to life. And you're building from, what are you, a 350 cap?
We say 325 sellable, 350 total. Yeah. So exactly. My always pitch has always been like, we do have Rebel Lounge. That is our room. That's definitely our incubator, sort of exactly what 7th Street is to
Rebel
First
Avenue, right?
yeah, Rebel Lounge was the Mason Jar. We rebranded. It had been closed for like a decade when we took over. And so when we took over, rebranded, but it's the same building.
Do you think you're free to opening more venues and trying to grow into like a First Avenue kind of thing where you got market share in your region based on having strategic pathway?
I'm definitely been looking at other venue ideas, and none of them have worked out yet. If I do another venue, it's got to be right. I don't want to do anything that isn't awesome. But ours is really growing artists in the market, and like our big pitch is always we go into kind of every room, every club, everything up to like 5,000 cap, and go into all the rooms and sort of want to make sure that when you're looking at Arizona, you can have one call. Like we routinely send 7 or 8 offers on a show and present, here's a number of all the different options is kind of routine for us, so that you can call us and have one conversation about every option in Arizona, whether that's going to Tucson or Phoenix, or here's the different clubs, both the capacity, styles. I think when you're talking the developing stuff, anything under 1,000 caps, the rooms make way more difference. Like this is a country show that will work in this room. It's not going to work in the other room. And then when the same agent on the conversation the next day, it'll be the exact opposite. Hey, you got a punk rock band. They want to be in the room I told you was wrong yesterday when we were talking about the Country Act, but now it is right for this. And sort of being that where you can get an honest opinion on all the different options in Arizona is what we try to do. So we work with basically every venue minus some of the PACs. We don't do a lot in PACs, but other than that, and we work with Live Nation a lot, go into their rooms. They promote into Rebel Lounge. We co-pro in other rooms with them. And so I try and work with everybody. So we work with a lot of different promoters in the market. I'm artist specific, whether it's Mike Universitile on a hip hop show here, or with Kim Leroux at 13th Floor on a metal show. It's like always, what is the best option for the artist? And always
you'll also go into Tucson and Albuquerque too, right? And sometimes
we do. We do a lot in Tucson. We do multiple a dozen shows a month in Tucson. We occasionally go to Flagstaff, maybe 1 or 2 shows a year, not very often, but we will. And then started in the last year and a half going into Albuquerque, working with the Revel there. A little bit of expansion there.
All right. So I'm hearing that there are 2 models essentially. There's the venue model where you're basing your business on filling your room and maybe counting on some of those ancillary revenues, ticketing the bar, what have you, versus the 4-walling in a region and making it based on the region. And it seems like there's a hybrid of some of these 2 businesses coming into it, but some of you lean more on the promoting and renting. Some of you lean more on the filling your own venues. And then there's a mixture between the 2 for almost everybody. Is that kind of the mix for everybody? Getting a lot of head nods?
Yeah, I think so. And then for us with Rebel, it's like we're a 300 cap club. There's not a lot of money being made there, either on the club side or, the promoter side. That really is the incubator for artists. Most of the biggest artists we do are artists that we booked at Rebel and we're the first, and really see it as like planting. It's like planting lots of seeds. You don't know which ones are going to come through, but when we do Alex G or Men I Trust, or we just announced a show in Geese, those are all artists that we booked at Rebel and have managed to book every step up. And it's like, okay, we did Rebel. Now let's go to the 500 cap. Now let's go to the 2,000 cap. And more of these conversations are like, okay, let's now go to the 2,000 cap or the 5,000 cap, and really getting that first call and building the artist and taking the first call before anyone else is that interested. Is that very much my model. We lose as many as we keep, for every one we manage to keep to that level, we lose 2, but it's fine. It is what it is.
Aaron, you were about to say?
Yeah, I was going to say, I think we rely heavily on the mix at this point, if not even more toward the own and O and or exclusive relationships. We've got a couple dozen rooms in the portfolio at this point, and while we absolutely are promoting in third parties, I think the margin and focusing on our owned and operated, we're finding is a more lucrative business than third party at this juncture. I think being a third party promoter has become harder and harder over the years. I think there's more competition than ever. And I think with expenses going up, inflation going up, And frankly, ticket prices probably at a peak, although a lot of people would probably argue that a live event, especially in sports, that there is no peak. In the Olympics, and those tickets, how fast they went probably says something. But I think the average consumer has seen the ticket prices go about as high as it should at this point. And so I think the deals in our business as a whole are challenging to combat, where we want to try and keep ticket prices as reasonable as possible for the consumer, but also get the artist as much money as possible and sustain and be able to make a living all at the same time. And it's a delicate ecosystem.
For anyone that says there's no peak, has never taken an economics class.
Yeah.
There clearly is a supply and demand curve. And at some point, you break the curve. There can be paradigm shifts and there can be changes to the model. But in general, there is a limited, finite amount of money in the economy. And at some point, entertainment is the last thing to fill the niche. And credit cards can only do so much. So as people tell me it's completely elastic and it's totally fine, it's just like, you didn't go to college, did you? So anytime Semi has an argument, I kind of want to snap at their head because it doesn't make sense. Shows will eventually lose.
Absolutely.
100%.
Absolutely.
By the way,
you already start seeing that.
Amen.
Yeah, but I think there's one of the ones that the hardest part of all our jobs and the agents' jobs is when it's really hard, it feels like you priced it way too low. You could have charged way more. And when it's not working, we all overshot. And like some of the times that you put up a show and it blows out the second it went up in sale and you go, man, I could have pushed that ticket a little more. And then on other times you think you've underpriced it and you didn't. And then it's just a struggle. And so like trying to figure out artist to artist, tour to tour, I think we're seeing right now a lot of tours on the developing end that are not doing what they did last year. And it's like we all thought, okay, we sold out 300 cap, we can go in the 500 cap this year, and now we're going to do less. And so getting that right is harder than ever of what that right price is.
all right, let's talk for a moment about the business model in general. Are you making money? Oh, I'm not going to ask you what you made last year, but are you making money when it's all said and done? Let's just go around this in a circle real quick. Aaron,
Yes.
Nate,
Yeah.
Steven,
Yeah.
Donnie,
Yes, sir.
Mr. Drusky.
Yep.
Okay, so you're all making money. I'm not asking you to what level and to what extent. Now, I will ask you, are you pacing this year for a better year or a worse year than last year?
It's much slower in our market.
Not as strong.
Definitely slower.
It seemed like it was coming out of the gate a little bit better, but now it's kind of tapered off.
Slower. Definitely slower.
Okay, now some of you depend on the bar and some of you depend on ticket sales. And I know the ticket sales kind of affect the bar at the end of the day too, but in general, Nate, it seems like the bar is softer on shows. Kids are drinking less.
Yeah, I mean, I got to tell you,
Can you not
see it
depend
there-
on the bar anymore? Is that something you're not holding when you're buying a show?
I mean, I barely contemplate the bar when we're booking shows at this point. It's not only that the bar sales have tapered off, it's also just the pricing pressures. And I can't speak to everybody else's market, but in Minneapolis, we don't have a tip credit. So we're up to like a $16.37 minimum wage with no relief. We have 18%, nearly 17.5% tax when we sell a beer, but there's only so much you can, charge, just like tickets, all of this stuff. It comes into the equation for people that you're trying to get to come out not once a year, not just for one big stadium show, but we're counting on our customers to come out, 10, 12, 15 times a year. And the pricing pressure has just gotten insane. And so we're also just looking to our city government saying, we provide something. We're bringing all these people. We've always been here through the changes that downtowns or other entertainment has seen, but it's time to take our business seriously, because just the between the artist deals and people not drinking as much and then pricing pressures, it's getting difficult, especially at that smallest level, especially at the 250, 350 clubs, which we all depend on, every single one of us, to develop these artists and get them to the next level. And if the bottom falls out of those smallest rooms that, nurture careers, I don't know where the next bands come from then.
Steven, you have an almost identical calendar as 7th Street Entry does in your room. Two different markets completely. Do you echo Nate's sentiment? Are you seeing the same things in Phoenix that he's seeing in Minneapolis?
Oh, absolutely. I mean, and like Arizona has the worst like liability laws for bars, so our liquor insurance is dramatically more than anyone else. And it's a weird one where when we're doing stuff outside of Rebel, I don't really think about bars much, but when we're doing Rebel, thinking about prioritizing those weekends, like I have to make sure that I'm programming with a thought on what gets a Friday and Saturday night. And we've programmed a lot more dance nights. The irony is I can do a better bar with 100-person local show with the right bands than I'll do with a sellout 300-person show, because the locals, everyone's coming out to see their friends. It's a fun night out. They're drinking. You put a cool show in there and everyone's having one beer. And so really thinking way further out about protecting those weekends. That's how I can have a shit bar on a Tuesday, is because the weekend is like, we program out our emo night. We do emo night first and do it twice a month. I've got that blocked out forever. Like there's no show that you could call me about that, because I need those every month. 2 of my 3 best bar nights are our emo nights, and I hate that we have to think about that. When we first opened, I didn't think that way about our weekends. And now I got to make sure that there's a couple of those dance nights on a Friday, Saturday and work around that, because you've got to get that revenue in there. And it's not as cool, but that's what keeps the lights on.
All right. Well, let's flip to the other side real quick. Donnie, Brian, Aaron. And Aaron, I know you have O&Os too, but like me at LN, I'm not focused on the O&Os as much as I'm focused on my X, and I know you're similar. When talking about four-walling shows, do you care how strong the bar is going to be, or are you just focused on selling tickets at that point because it doesn't change the deal all that much any way, shape, or form?
For me, it doesn't change the deal at all. I would say more often than not in theater and club world, the bar is not necessarily a shared financial, benefit to the show or to us as a renter. That's the buildings that generally keep it. So I'm not thinking about it at all for the most part when I'm renting third party.
Brian?
It depends, because I have different deals in different venues. So sometimes like in a club that
We've got time, break them all out.
I'm like, okay, hold on a second. But like Stephen was saying, some places I gotta make sure that I have the home runs on the weekends, because that's the bread and butter for some of these clubs, and I'm sharing in the alcohol revenue, and sometimes, some of these agents are like, well, I really need that Friday, and you're going to draw 200 people that aren't going to drink, you know what I mean? So it's tough. But then going into like a theater, like I'll go into, if I'm not sharing the bar, I don't really care. You know what I mean? So it's like, if I'm going to sell 2,000 tickets, it doesn't matter to me if that venue is making their alcohol money or not, because I'm not getting a part of it, and I'm already paying them some type of rent, so they're already getting stuff.
Donnie?
I'm with Aaron on this one. I certainly have some buildings where we participate on the F&B side, but even then when we participate, it's usually at a small level, and it's more or less gravy at that point. Obviously, there's other rebates that we're looking for, that we're counting on, other revenue streams, but the bar is really not that important to us. And really, at the end of the day, sometimes it comes down to the old-fashioned, we need to sell tickets to make money.
Never a truer sentence has ever been said by a concert promoter. One of the questions that Donnie actually brought up as a topic earlier was the amount of micromanaging we're seeing on the baby shows from the management teams that are developing these acts, and how they want to approve every little thing, and they don't leave room for the locals. And I imagine this really affects a lot of the shows that Brian, Nate, and Stephen book in particular. Having a local on one of those shows can really change the day. And when they're not leaving room for you to put people in front of their crowd, and they book 3 or 4 bands on a bill that no one's, they're all drawing next to nothing, it's got to really make a challenge for you guys.
Absolutely.
Oh no, that was so much of what I built my business on, was being able to take those baby bands and make it into a great show and get the right locals on it. So many of those shows, I'm booking less of them, and we're saying no more because we can't do that. And, these shows, you can have a bill that's more than 2 bands on a Tuesday night when you're selling less than 200 tickets. And the one that I hate the most is, let's wait and see. Let's wait and see. And you're like, well, 3 months out when we announced, I could have got a great local on that's going to add 50% more tickets and help promote and make it cool. And then when we had one literally last week, we've been screaming about a local. The show's going to bomb. We're not going to gross the guarantee. band on their first tour, 2-band bill on a Sunday. We had been screaming the entire way, let us do something. The show's on a Sunday. They came to us on Thursday and said, which local is going to add the most? And we went, we're not even wasting our time on, you want us in 2 days to add a local that's going to impact this show? I don't even know which of these bands we pitched 3 months ago are available now, but we waited. And then, of course, you can tell, like, never once has a manager said, let's wait and see. And it actually worked out where it wasn't needed, right? Like, you either know it is. If it's sold out, I don't care. You know, it's like, okay, I get it. Your show's sold out. We don't need it. But when it's
heard that question, that was your question, right, Stephen? That you said that?
Yeah. But it's like, how are we being so micromanaged and precious on some of these small acts? And it's like the weird fluke or playing with a band that's a different genre or playing with the right audience. And you get these managers that are saying, you know, they don't have enough monthly listeners on Spotify. And it's like, I'm talking about the college band in Phoenix. Like, yeah, they've got like 2 demos out and don't have any monthly listeners. But guess what? They're 200 monthly listeners. I'm going to get 75% of them to come see their show because the only people that listen are their friends. You know, that's going to help. And it's just so hard to make these tiny shows work when it's all micromanaged from people in a different state.
Oh, yeah. I mean, it's to the point where, like, Steven, I'm sure you've passed on shows when they're just, I'm like, I'm not going to do this show if it's going to take a month for you to confirm a local band on the show, because it doesn't make any sense. I mean, we're the promoters. We know not to put a metal band with a country band or a country band with a emo band or whatever. I said, we know what we're doing. Don't think we don't. I mean, maybe some people out there who don't know what they're doing have done that, and it makes them look stupid. But I mean, we're seasoned promoters. We know it's going to work with this show more so than not, and we know the bands that are going to sell the tickets, so just let us do it. But I mean, I fought with somebody, I can't remember who it was, like about 3 weeks ago. I'm like, it's a favor show I'm doing. It's probably going to do like 100 people or whatever. We have to approve the local. I'm like, this is ridiculous. Why? Then do it quickly, because I'm not waiting a month, because it makes no sense for me financially. And these bands don't care. You know what I mean? Like these baby bands, I don't know if it's like an ego thing or what, but it's like, let us do our job.
We also had one that's thinking about the venue not that long ago, Country Act, never ended up approving locals. I've got a 45-minute show on a Friday night in the bar. The bar's asking because they never approved a local. The band didn't even play an hour set because they don't have an hour set. And I'm explaining to the venue why their Friday night had 45 minutes of music because the agent wouldn't approve us filling the night. And then we had this awkward band didn't want to go on after doors because there weren't people in the room yet. And it was just like a total awkward situation. And it was like, what did we accomplish here?
The other thing I just wanted to add is I've never seen locals be undervalued in the way they have been in the last couple of years, where a tour might be doing poorly and they want to add a local, but they expect the band to play for free. Or for $50 to $100, but they still have the expectation that it's a band with a draw.
So we have a couple other questions that you guys sent, and I want to kind of hit on them. The question was, how have things changed since you first started promoting? What's the biggest change you've seen in the marketplace? Nate, let's start with you.
Ship. I mean, top to bottom, when I started, it was paper tickets at record stores. You faxed an offer, and when you just mentioned micromanaging, I remember the days when you confirmed the show and it was kind of yours. You marketed it the way you wanted. You got an 8x10 in the mail. You figured out when the show was going to go on sale, and there was a lot less back and forth and control from the agent or management team as to how you dealt with your show the moment it was confirmed or the contracts were signed. Obviously now it couldn't be farther from that world where it seems like things are managed to death.
Use our assets. What about
it's not just the assets. It's like, I mean, it's valued. It just seems like there maybe could be a happy medium.
Mr. Zimmerman?
I mean, when I started, there was a promoter profit in every single deal. These were plus deals. When was the last time you did a plus with a promoter profit in? I mean, I think the deals have changed drastically from plus to versus. What's documented, what's not. Are we doing door deals now? And what percentage of the door deals, what expenses are even included in those? I mean, I'd ask these days to just pay for everything, and they still want, the lion's share, whether you're actually promoting the show or not from a marketing perspective. I think every deal these days is unique, and I think every deal is looked at in a microscope, whether it's a big act or a small act, and that everyone is looking for, the best payday they can get in every situation for the most part. I think there was a lot more development back in the day. And so I think now it's a bit more of what can we get on this run. But that's the life. I think, back to what you guys were talking about earlier about developing, I think we've also seen a lot more artists skip steps. I mean, you get one big, TikTok hit and you never even played that 300 or 1,000. And now all of a sudden you're thrust into, these big clubs, arenas, shed tours, and you never even did the club date at all. Everything kind of happens so much faster now because of the internet, worldwide, exposure to everything.
Well, and it changes some stuff too, right? There's a very Malcolm Gladwell 10,000 hours involved with being able to handle an arena stage. And when you put an act up there that doesn't have time to develop in the clubs, in the ballrooms, into the theaters, before they take that arena stage, or God forbid, the festival headline stage, there can be a real rude awakening in comparison to a seasoned headliner and the difference in that set and the sustainability. To see what an act like that had come up, like Somber is having a moment right now, Benson Boone, these guys have great live shows, but they've developed that in the smaller venues to become what they are now. Clearly the Hives can't go out and do what they did live wise in a show in a room without having all those shows behind them to have that kind of synergy with the audience because they're connected. If you're jumping straight to those arenas without that experience, there is definitely something lost as far as the value of knowing how to control an audience.
Agreed.
How much is a streaming issue? How many streams the band is getting in a month? It seems like it's coming up more and more. How much does that affect how you're buying, and how often do you hear that from an agent or a manager now?
I think it totally depends on the type of artist it is. And, if we're looking at an older punk rock artist, I don't even look at it. Alkaline Trio's got blah streaming numbers at best, and they're going to sell us a shit ton of tickets, and we all know it. So like certain artists, we don't look at it a lot. If that's kind of the pitch, is here's a buzzy band that has it. But we just went up on sale with an artist who just crossed 1 billion streams on their big single, and our on sale was like 50 tickets. I think that act's going to do really well, but they're on their first real. They've been touring a couple years, and they're on a real headline run in the 300 caps. But that 1 billion streams is not, they haven't gone out and done the legwork yet, and now they have to go do that. And you can get to that 1 billion streams, like he said, before you've done the legwork on the road. So what does it mean? I don't know.
Is there a metrics where it does make sense though when you're buying a show? Is there a genre or an act where you're like, oh, that's a thing?
I would say podcasts, if podcasts and YouTube and some of the non-traditional product. I think family entertainment, I think a lot of those metrics add up a little bit more. I think still for me, the key to, trying to cut a good deal in everything is history. What have you done? Where have you done it? That's still the best avenue I have to kind of judge what it's going to do city over city.
Okay. I want to ask, how much of your business is hampered by competing with AEG, Live Nation, Nederlander? Are the big guys affecting your business, or is it more about getting the right act at the right deal that you can make it work now? Donnie?
I would say overall, the bulk of my business, I don't really get into the Live Nation AEG world. But occasionally, anytime I'm bidding on a show at the Chicago Theater, usually there's an offer from Live Nation or another large entity. And at that point, I've got...
Right. I mean, you're to market with Jam, and they're still in that market, even though they're an indie, they're still one of the biggest promoters in the country.
Sure. Yeah, I'm sure. I mean, I don't ask an agent who else has an offer, and they'll tell me if I really want to pry. But overall, I just want to find out, does somebody have an offer in? And if I can find out what that number is, even more so, that's more important to me than knowing who the promoter is at that point. I think, for the most part, with the secondary, tertiary markets of the world that we're in, I'm not competing against Live Nation, AEG, and other entities. I'm competing against other independent promoters. I'm competing against buildings in some case. That's another thing that is my pet peeve these days is the aggressive venues that are making offers on their own. I mean, since when did you become my competition? So promoters are for it.
Anybody else on that topic? You guys are all great. I mean, Ethan?
I can say that, while we're able to still compete in a level and get the shows, obviously there's a lot of pressure on the deals and things get very tight when you're going up against Live Nation, particularly on the same shows. There's not like an indie promoter discount,
Yeah.
Aaron?
I would say we try our very best to work with Live Nation, AEG, Nederlander, especially in our O&Os. I mean, all of our buildings are open. We want to encourage relationships with all of those entities. I think we've all seen the tour deal become more relevant and, happens more often. And, when we have a room that we need to supply talent and keep things going, the best approach in my brain is to build a relationship with all of them and work with them, not against them.
It sounds like you're saying the money is the biggest issue right now in the deal, and it's more about the agent and the manager driving a really tough deal across the board, and that's your obstacle is cutting a fair deal that you're going to be able to get through. Are you guys all agreeing with that? It's not so much who you're competing with, but being able to walk that margin of the deal the agent's making you take to get the show and trying to make it work.
I think that's one of the biggest is at indies is knowing when to say no, knowing when to sort of bow out of it and, not having a big room. I don't have to set, once it gets out of my comfort zone, I have no need to lose money on go into a situation I know I'm going to lead on. It's like the politics of filling my room with a show I'm going to lose. Don't control any of the bigger rooms. So I'm not trying to fill the calendar if it doesn't make sense. And on some of these shows, when it gets, if there's too many good offers in the market, it's like better to just walk away and not lose money to get the show. What good does that do? And so knowing when it stops making sense or not letting someone, if I know someone's just trying to use me to beat up another offer, it's like, I'm not going to get in that game, because there's no winning. Either I annoy somebody else driving up their price or I lose money on the show. Like, not worth it. So knowing when to say no on that is like so key to me surviving as an indie. You don't have to win every deal.
Getting in a bidding war is just never good for anybody.
No. Well, it's good for the agent.
Good for the artist. Yeah, the agent.
From a promoter perspective.
I also like if an agent's going to go do the wrong play in a situation that's wrong, but the money's right. Well, I'm not going to, if you're competing where it's okay, I'm in the nice room that's the expensive room, and you want me to compete with a room that's nowhere near the quality, then yeah, you're getting what you pay for. And if the agent's going to go make a wrong decision, I don't need to pay to convince them to do the right decision if it doesn't make sense.
I think there's situations where it's not even the wrong decision. And I've definitely have artists that I've worked with since the beginning of their career. And you get the phone call that it's like, hey, I got sort of bad news. You're not getting this show, but it's because the fucking Home and Garden show offered my artist $250,000 and we're going to take it this time, but don't worry, in 18 months, we're going to come back and figure out what the next play is with you. And at that point, you feel happy for everybody. Go have a nice meal, guys. Look forward to the next phone call, right? That's the kind of relationship that, I'm hoping to have with the bands where it's like they want to work with us. They know we're the best partner in the market, but also to be honest and say, hey, sometimes there might be a lot of money sitting at the end of the rainbow and it's worth grabbing, but it's a diversion in knowing that you're going to be, around for the next step.
It does seem interesting that we've had to learn to become very submissive and good sports about the casino offer coming in, as if the band make $35,000 on a date in the market when they should be worth 20, and maybe they'll promote it well, maybe they won't, but they're going to come back to us after the casino either does well or fucks it up, and then we get it back, even though the casino certainly wasn't there to help them through the market the first time. I know they're taking the money anyway and they don't give a fuck about what we think about that, but I do think it's interesting that we've become so submissive on that process that we have no choice. It's like, oh, they're taking the money at the casino, of course.
Even some of these larger promoters are making casino type offers in some larger venues too. So we got to deal with that too.
I think one is Nate talking about being the good partner is you should never get mad when the artist takes what's clearly the better offer in the market. Like if you can't provide the best option, you shouldn't be getting it. And, there's some of these, especially some of the indies who just want to cry every single time. And it's like, well, crying every time does not mean that you make it more likely that you get the next call. If there's a great festival offer or one-off or, weird situation, if you've got to bring a show down because they got a support slot, root for the band and be in for the long haul. And, if you make it unpleasant every time you lose a show, it doesn't seem to be the best strategy to get the next call.
Agreed.
2 questions before we go, and one of them the second one I'm really excited to hear you guys' thought. But first, let's go around the shoe real quick. Can you each of you tell me how many shows you're planning on doing this year? You're pacing to do. Let's start with Aaron.
300 shows for myself, and I think our company goal was 3,000 or 3,500 this year, maybe.
Okay, Donnie.
I mean, we're a much smaller office. We'll do 80 to maybe 100 shows this year.
Your overhead is much lower than Geiger.
Yeah. It's good. It's always worked out.
Steven?
Probably between Rebel and Psycho Steve, probably do somewhere around 700 shows. But for perspective, probably 600 of those will be 500 or less tickets. So large volume of small club shows and probably 100 tickets that are 1,000 plus cap.
But you bid it, you built it, you catered it, you produced it, you settled it,
Yeah.
you put them on stage, and you paid them.
Yeah.
Regardless of being arena or club, you went through all the steps.
Some of those smaller shows are more work than the bigger ones.
Fuck yeah, they are. Brian, how many? You do a shit shows. Every week you announce like 7,000 shows.
Not that many, but probably between 750 850. And that's from smaller clubs up to amphitheater, not large amphitheaters, smaller amphitheaters, and some arenas in different markets.
You're doing 800 shows with how many people on your team?
There are about 6 of us.
Fuck. That's insane.
That doesn't include us. I do have production people that I hire separately, but for the most part, marketing and ticketing and administrative staff and stuff like that. Yeah, that's all of us.
Okay, Nate, how many shows are you buying and how many shows will you guys as First Avenue do?
I mean, it's kind of gets to be in a gray area as to how many I buy. They get,
And you kind of alley-oop a bunch of stuff, right?
Yeah, we sit right next to one another, and so it's kind of difficult. As a company, we'll do somewhere north of 1,000, around maybe 1,100 shows this year. 150 of those contracts will have my name on the top.
All right. So there's not a lack of traffic and volume this year in the business. There's plenty of shows going around. You guys all had your hands on lots of shows.
To be clear, that is tracking lower for us, though. So
I would agree with that. Well, I think we're seeing or trying to buy volume similarly. I think that there is a bit of a thin touring cycle right now, especially towards the end of this year.
We're seeing a lot, like almost two. I'm worried about the amount of traffic that we're looking at for mid-September to mid-November, but we've started off pretty slow.
I've defined the concept of what is an independent promoter by who's on the call today. What do each of you think encompasses what an independent promoter is? Let's start with you, Nate.
I mean, number one, we're spending our own money, and we're on our own. We need our venues and our shows to be profitable, and there isn't another division to look at to pick up the slack. If our shows aren't profitable, we're out of business.
Steven?
Yeah, I don't know. There's a different definition than that. That seems a pretty good one.
That works.
So.
Drusky, you got anything different, or you agree with that exactly?
No, it's pretty much exactly. I mean, being an independent promoter is what used to be, where you were building the act from the bottom up and taking them all the way to where you could take them to, but that kind of changed a little bit now. But yeah, it's pretty much exactly what Nate said. I agree with.
Donnie?
Danny, I care about my shows. I care about my artists. I care about the relationships that I have. When my shows are losing money, my shows are losing money because you will probably hear it from me. But you won't hear it from me necessarily on a negative level. But I want help. I want you to help me market my show. We're doing everything we can to make the show successful. And I think overall, like when a tour stiffs, I have the better dates on that tour. And that's because we put a lot of effort into each show. That's the definition of an independent promoter.
Wait, do you think that Live Nation buyers and AEG buyers don't care about their artists and their shows in the same
No,
way?
I'm not saying it like that. What I'm saying is I think that the volume of a company like that, when you have so many shows to deal with between the buyers and the marketers and the production team, that when a show is soft, it's a little bit easier for you guys to move on. And again, going back to it, it's my money. It's my money. It's not over until the show plays out. So I think that, I put every ounce of effort into every single show that we do to make it successful.
Aaron?
I think the smaller volume comparatively to a Live Nation or AEG, I think makes us independent. But I also think, at least at this point, the independence, at least what I see at Gate 52, is that as it evolved into specialty and people that really know their craft and know their genres and know their music. And these are people that are just truly passionate about a specific portion of this business. And that's not to say that Live Nation or AEG or these other buyers aren't, but I think we're able to be focused on a slightly smaller scale compared to others. And I think that really helps us as independents.
Aaron, if you're an independent, wouldn't AEG be an independent too? Because they're spending Philip Anschutz's money. It's one guy, just like it's Dana's money. Wouldn't they still be an independent based on that same criteria?
I would argue that we work in a business that has, that we have Live Nation, we have AEG, and then we have everybody else. I hear what you're saying, but I still think the volume from a Gate 52 level to a AEG level is not really apples to apples. We're not really close in the straight up. If you just looked at show count or straight volume, I can't imagine we would be, anywhere on the same level as AEG.
So is that part of the definition that we amend to, that they're a global company and they're doing business throughout the world?
Maybe.
I'm
Yeah, no, I don't know if there's a true definition. I would tell you we are not operating globally. We're nationally only. We are national, but we've not gone outside of the US. And, and because I think also we are so focused on the regional and the secondary and the tertiary, that I think it lends itself to the independent spirit.
Yeah, I actually spent during COVID when we first started NEVA and I was head of the membership, spent a lot of time trying to figure out a definition for this that would work and exclude who we felt needed to be excluded and include who we wanted to. And it was really, really difficult. And you realize how many weird businesses and weird connections there are in some of these companies. To really defining that was not as easy a task as you might think.
Why exclude anybody?
To be the independent, like who's an independent promoter?
Why wouldn't you? I don't understand why NEVA would exclude anybody. Like, if you're building a force, why not go in as strong as possible? And I wouldn't have brought the question up, but you mentioned it. So since you opened the door and you were on that team,
I mean, I have a little insight into this, and I remember before there was a NEVA having a conversation with Dana after the pandemic, and there was some White House council on how to deal with, or not even a council, there was going to be a sit-down meeting on how to navigate the shutdown for the live music industry. And I believe Live Nation and AEG were both invited to be a part of the meeting, and there was nobody representing the rest of us. And I know Dana's mentioned right away, she's like, well, we need a seat at this table. Like, why, or like, who's going to be there representing all the rest of us? And at that moment in time, there wasn't anybody. And then I have no idea how it started, but a couple weeks later, I know NEVA was getting off the ground.
Does that sound right to you?
Yeah, absolutely. And to answer your question more, when we were doing NEVA, it was like trying to define the marketplace with the specific goal of like the federal aid and knowing that what sort of category, this isn't bars and restaurants. So actually the hardest one was on the bottom end of like, what's a wine bar with a violin player in the corner? Is that a music venue? And then, other categories that, obviously publicly traded companies in a different category of how are we defining this to get that, what became Save Our Stages, making sure that we were defining that area in a way that made sense. And then also could be quantified to like, how much money does it need for that specific area? And so like, that was why it was like specific to needing to define that world in a very concrete way or an objective way.
We've been out of COVID for about 5 years now. You guys miss it? All that free time you used to have.
I mean, there's nothing better than canceling hundreds or thousands of shows. I mean, that was.
Well, that was 2020.
I did drive-in shows during COVID.
So did I.
Nice.
I was in Arizona. We didn't have COVID after like 3 months. So
Nice.
COVID, we miss it so. I want to thank all you guys for taking time on this Saturday afternoon to talk to me about business in the independent promoter world. Brian Drusky, Stephen Chilton, Don Kronberg, Nate Kranz, Aaron Zimmerman. Thank you guys so much for sharing your wisdom, what's going on in your business place. I really appreciate it. I think a lot of good comes from these conversations, and I think it really helps give a scope to what's going on out there in the business. And for nothing else, just so Live Nation and AEG know what to steal from you guys. Hey, Luke, before we go, who do you think is the most type A of all of our guests this week?
Whew.
They are all entrepreneurs, all quite established, but of all of them, who do you think is the most driven?
Okay, I think that's kind of a loaded question, but I will say this. I think they all have type A parts about them, but I think like the largest percentage type A, I'm going to do a coin toss between Aaron Zimmerman and Stephen Chilton. That's Psycho Steve. When you get down to the weeds, you start talking about Steve and some stuff. He's got a lot of type A in him. There's some stuff about Steve that's not type A at all. But in business, I think he is. And Zimmerman, button-up guy, type A. What do you think, Dan?
I would say Aaron's probably the most aggressive buyer of the dais. I think Brian Drusky is a close second. He does a lot of volume. And I don't know that there's a show that plays the Twin Cities that Nate doesn't have his fingerprints on these days. So it really is a tough one. And I don't know that Donnie knows the word pass. So yeah, it's a coin flip there, but maybe Aaron by a touch.
It's a smidge, right? Like I feel like it's down to that, you know? Yeah.
He is aggressive. Mark Geiger won the day when he got his hands on Aaron Zimmerman.
No doubt.
Wake up with Steiny and Luke. And then you should probably question all your life choices. Yeah. Promoter 101.
All right, ladies and gentlemen, everyone tuning in, thank you so much for listening to this, the 243rd episode of Promoter 101. A very special thank you to you for listening. A special thank you to our wonderful guests, Don Kronberg, Aaron Zimmerman, Steve Chilton, Brian Drusky, Nathan Kranz. Go check out, support all their shows, support independent music, support independent venues. Go check out the NEVA conference, June 7th to 10th. If you liked what you heard today, you can always shoot us a note, steiny@promoter101.net. Check in with us, or, you know, if you just want to miss us, if you miss us and just want to catch up, listen to you too.
I want to just mention that we felt like the independent voices of talent buyers hadn't been represented for a while, and we wanted to give them access to our platform. So while we are just a monthly podcast, we decided to drop an extra one. We hope you guys enjoy it. We know that you guys have been listening, and it's our little thank you to you. Thank you for listening. So this is an extra bonus episode. And maybe from time to time, we'll sneak a couple more bonuses out.
Our May episode will feature Regional Vice President of Live Entertainment for ASM Global at Diamond Desert Arena and State Farm Stadium, Ralph Marquetta.
That'll be May 28th and the last Thursday of every month moving forward.
In the meantime, we're wishing you sold out shows for the month to come.
Cheers.
Call your mother.